The Ministry of Skills Development, Employment and Labour Relations, together with the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission of Sri Lanka, would like to warmly welcome you to the international webinar series in celebration of World Youth Skills Day for year 2020. So the objective of these webinars is to create a regional dialogue about skills in demand and driving youth towards a promising employment and entrepreneurship career path, and to listen to the pioneers in their respective domains, to learn from them and to see how best we can craft the future with lessons learned in the past. So without further ado, I would like to warmly welcome Dr. T.A. Piesiri to commence the session on vocational training towards employment opportunities. Dr. Piesiri is a board member of the National Education Commission of Sri Lanka and was the former Director General of the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission in Sri Lanka, and also the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Vocational Technology, or commonly known as Univotech in Sri Lanka. With this, I would like to formally welcome Dr. Piesiri. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Screen now. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And share currently. Right. Right. Presentation. Good morning, everyone, and greetings from Sri Lanka. And today is the World Youth Skills Day, the day declared by the United Nations in 2014 on the initiative taken by the government of Sri Lanka. So we are proud of it. And though we cannot celebrate it physically this time, this webinar series is going to do the needful and to keep the wheels driving. So thank you very much for joining the meeting, and I would like to spend the next half an hour on talking vocational training towards employment opportunities. Now, I will look at this topic on the policy making and planning point of view, and would like to share some of the experiences Sri Lanka has on the subject over the last, say, 2 decades. The presentation I like to structure like this: the macro issues governing vocational training, the role of the government, public and private provision, rationalization of TVET system, the role of the industry, the holistic development of the trainee, specific interventions for labor market orientation and employment facilitation, efficiency of TVET systems and assessment tools, and the future challenges. When we look at Sustainable Development Goal number 4 on education, there are 3 outcomes identified in relation to vocational training. Output 3, equal access to technical, vocational and higher education. By 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational and tertiary education, including university. Output 4, relevant skills for decent work. By 2030, substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs and entrepreneurship. Output 5, gender equity and inclusion. By 2030, eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and children in vulnerable situations. So these are the main overall outputs in relation to vocational training, and all governments take note of these in formulating their policies and planning purposes. The macro issues, we will take few very quickly. The economic growth and employment creation are not matching with the numbers seeking employment. Now, this is a situation in many developing countries. We have not created enough jobs. the job creation is falling short of the people seeking employment. And in Sri Lanka, we had the main contributors to economic growth identified as the construction, tourism and hospitality, information communication and industry sectors. And we had our targets, but we have not reached the targets of employment generation in these as expected due to various reasons within Sri Lanka as well as in the global scenario. But this has created a problem. So this is where we create more unemployment. Look at the large percentage of people in the informal economy, and also people are trapped in low productivity jobs. Now, many developing countries have this problem. That is the larger percentage of people are in the informal economy. The Sri Lankan situation is about 60% of the workforce are in the informal economy. So it's difficult to move them from the informal economy to formal economy, especially when you look at the farming sectors and all the sectors like that. They like to be proud farmers of their own lands rather than moving into more employment oriented and more gainful jobs in the other places. So these are various problems that we have in these countries. The coexistence of unemployment and labor shortages, because when you look at the countries you have within your country, you have labor shortages as well as the unemployment coexisting at the same time. Now we see in Sri Lankan situation, we see about nearly 2 million people work outside Sri Lanka. And then within Sri Lanka, we see another, say, approximately 200,000 employees from the neighboring countries come and work here. So there is a movement of labor. And then when you look at some of the sectors like construction sector, the apparel sector, the plantation sector, there are various labor shortages. So this is where the foreign workers come and fill some of those. And at the same time, the Sri Lankans go abroad and work in other countries. So this is the global scenario. And the low female participation in labor force and the growth of elderly population. Now, these are, when you look at the female population, they are those who are in the employable ages, they are a very good asset for the workforce in any country. But we see that in many countries, the female participation is low. In Sri Lankan situation, it's only about 35%. So this need to be increased, and the able female population must be brought into the labor market and to the labor force. The growth of elderly population, so we see the number of dependents are increasing. The percentage of people working in the working ages are getting gradually reduced. So higher productivity is expected from the working population. So these are the issues, and this is where the training is coming. So we need to have the female friendly training organizations, the training systems, as well as we need to get the higher productivities from all those who are going through the vocational training and other educations. The education and aspirations of youth, when we look at the countries in the Asian region, there is very high priority for education, and everybody likes to give their children the education, general education, the higher education. And general education is also geared towards the satisfying the needs of the higher education, as well as the general education aspects are also looked at. But the focus is the higher education when it comes to secondary education levels. So this is where we need the general education and introduction of practical and technical skills within general education to a certain extent. This must be a systematic introduction of practical and technical skills, so that the pupils will appreciate and understand the needs of practical skills, and then how they will think and form their attitudes in the future. Then career education and career guidance, matching aptitudes to aspirations, because we have to identify the aptitudes of children when they are going through the school education, and then form aspirations to match with those aptitudes. uh, Everybody can't be an engineer or a doctor. We have to see how the children coming from the schools are diverted to different skills, and then the education, and to different employments, to the benefit of economy and to the society. Then streamlining transition from general education to TVET. So this is happening in some countries, and some countries this is not very clear. Because when they leave general education at different stages, maybe after 10 years of schooling or 12 years of schooling, then only they will look for where do I go now, and can I go to TVET. But I think better than that, I think we need to have within the general education the transitional way of transferring students, uh, to transfer the students from general education to TVET, for those who are not going for higher education. So these are some of the macro issues that we have in the many developing countries. I thought this is needed highlighting, because at the policy making level we need to address this. The role of the government, when you look at it, it's mainly the policy making and planning function, and also the regulatory function, to have established a level playing field for public and private training providers, as well as the qualification systems, maybe vocational qualification systems, and then identifying the competencies, all that. So streamlining the quality assurance processes, the labor market relevance. So these are the roles of the government. And when you look at policy making, you will see three pictures down below. We have the national policy on technical and vocational education. This was completed in 2018 and approved in 2019, which is under implementation now. Then when it comes to qualification frameworks, Sri Lanka has a national vocational qualifications framework, and you see the vocational qualification framework document, the operational manual. So, and then the labor market relevance, there are many ways of gauging the labor market requirements of the industry and in the country. So I have given one publication from the TVEC, that is the Labor Market Information Bulletin. But there are many other players, the Department of Census and Statistics, the industry sector skills councils. There are many players to get the information on labor market relevance. And then the training provider. The government also works as a training provider. And also we have the private sector, but government is engaged in giving the training, like the general education. So we have technical and vocational education also provided by the government. So these are the major roles of the government, but government is the main policy maker setting the directions for the technical and vocational education in any country. The public and private training provision, and we see the public institution networks, the major networks in the country, as well as individual training centers providing institutional based training, and these are all coupled with the on-the-job training in the industry for a shorter, or say at least 6 months period of time. Then the apprenticeship based training, that provides a direct relevance to industry skills needs, because they are in the industry and really engaged in the activities of the industry while undergoing training. So these are good for shorter, the narrow, sometimes when the industry is small, the skills that the apprentice acquire may be fairly narrow, but it is with that particular industry relevance. And also in the emerging fields of technology, before the start of these institutional based training in the training courses and all that, the industry gets the new technologies, and the students can be trained as apprentices in those new technologies. Those are the many advantages of apprenticeship based training. So both have their own merits, and sometimes these two are coupled in training. The rationalization of TVET systems and qualifications frameworks, as I said, Sri Lanka has a national vocational qualifications framework with 7 levels, 4 certificate levels, 2 diploma levels, and 1 degree level. And also Sri Lanka has a national qualification framework, Sri Lanka National Qualifications Framework, SLQF, that is mainly used by the higher education sector. 2 frameworks. However, there is mapping between the two so that one can go from one to the other. And these qualification frameworks, National Vocational Qualification Framework identifies the competency standards for various occupations of training at certificate level, diploma levels. Competency standards have been developed, the competency-based curricula, all these systems of competency-based assessments all in place. Then providing framework for quality assurance in training program design, operation, assessment, and certification. Because the qualification framework provides guidance for all these program design, operation, assessment, how the competency-based assessments are done, the training of assessors, all that is there, and the certification system, the authentic certifications. So these are the functions going when you establish a qualifications framework. There are many activities connected with it to accomplish the intended outcomes. Then the institutional structure for delivery of training, because when you have rationalized the qualifications at certificate, diploma, and all that, we need institutional networks. So we need institutions to deliver certificate level courses. We need institutions to deliver diploma level programs, and then we need a university to award the degrees, to conduct the degree programs and award the degrees. So Sri Lanka is one of the very first countries to establish a university for the technical and vocational education sector in 2008, called University of Vocational Technology, UniVotech, and this admits the students with diploma qualifications. So the TVET path is now provided through to the degree levels, from certificate to diploma and diploma to degree levels. Right. The role of the industry, because we know that the vocational training is to train people to work in the industry, and we need to have a very close collaboration with the industry. So ensure minimizing the skills mismatch, because we need to have the right information about the demanded areas, as well as we need, when we are designing the competency standards, we need inputs from the industry directly to see what the industry really needs, competencies, the technical competencies, as well as the soft skills and all that, what they really want in various occupations. So that will, this continuous dialogue will assist to reduce the skills mismatch and satisfy the needs of the industry. So there must be mechanisms to get the continuous inputs from the industry in competency standard development, revision of those at frequent intervals. The work through industry sector skills councils. Sri Lanka has established several industry sector skills councils. Those work very closely with the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission and the ministries here, so that the collective inputs from the industry is given for the program design, competency standard setting, assessments, and all that. Then collaborate for apprenticeship training and on-the-job training. So that is very important. The awareness of the industry to admit these apprentices, as well as the trainees coming from the training institutions for on-the-job training. Then providing directions of industry growth and employment creation. Because not only the current needs, we need to look to the future and see what directions the industry is growing, and the employment will be created, so that the government and the training institutions will be able to be proactive in responding to the industry needs. The holistic development of the trainee, the emphasis on employability skills, because not only the technical skills, the soft skills, the employability skills are also very important, irrespective of the level, because earlier these soft skills were more looked at the diploma levels and degree levels, but now even at the certificate levels, the employers expect a good command of these soft skills by the employees. So it is very important. So all the training programs should have a component to develop the employability skills of trainees. The specific interventions I like to take from Sri Lankan situation for labor market orientation of TVET and employment facilitation. One is the training purchase model. While we have the training providers, government as well as private, there are certain specific needs of skills, specifically addressing the labor market needs and bridging the gaps in skilled labor supply and demand. Now, we have training now. This training purchase model facilitates funding of the total cost of training for selected private training providers or industries having their own training facilities for their training efforts, leading to employment in priority industry sectors. So this is in addition to the existing training that is provided by the public and private institutions, and these shortfalls are identified. We have a mechanism within the Ministry of Skills Development, and those identified gaps in skills demand is bridged by this training purchase model, and requesting the private sector who can have the more flexibility in moving from one training system to another, one occupation to another. So they call bids from private sector as well as from the industries, and offer training contracts to train certain number of students, 100, 200 in each place, like that. So the training have been purchased in the last about 4 years now. Agriculture, construction, hospitality, manufacturing, healthcare, ICT, tourism, and service sectors. So this is a good model because really the skill demand is identified, and the training is provided through this mechanism, and this will directly lead to the gainful employment in the industry. Then the entrepreneurship training and startup loans. Now, the training programs themselves have certain amount of entrepreneurship training built into the training programs, but at the same time, at the end of training programs, the trainees can take up the basic entrepreneurship program, which is few days, and if they are, when they go through that, if they are inclined to start their own industry, own enterprise, then they can take the advanced entrepreneurship training program, and on completion of that, and that will guide them how to prepare a industry, a plan, how to prepare a business proposal, how to approach the bank and get the loans and all that. And there is a loan scheme called CEPI, that is Self-Employment Promotion Initiative loan scheme, which is a low interest loan, and the collateral is very little. That is only the parents have to guarantee that loan, and this provides startup loan for the trainees. So this is in 2019. This chart shows the loans granted in different sectors. The largest number of loans have been granted in the hair and beauty sector for 28 persons, 13.8 million. And then the last one, the mechanic, electrical and electronics sectors, 13 loans have been granted, 5.8 million. So this is a good initiative, and we see that the loan recovery rates are very good. The loan recovery rate is over 95%, and that shows that those who have taken loans have started their enterprises and businesses, and large majority are succeeding in those. Another one is the Skills Passport, which is a very recent initiative, and this is launched today at the Prime Minister's office. And this is a smart card, which gives the information of the person who has obtained the vocational qualifications, the details of his qualification, the competency units that he has covered, as well as it will contain the work experience of the person. And so anyone scanning this QI code will be able to get that information, and this information is to be verified by the unit established in the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission. So this is a good new initiative taken by the government with the Employers Federation and International Labour Organization also involved in this activity. I like to draw one more thing on the systems approach to better education research. This is an analytical tool by the World Bank to analyze our vocational education systems in the country, how well we are doing in the policy making, establishment of systems, and service delivery. I take just 2-3 minutes on this. This is the strategic framework, that is the cluster that is setting strategic direction, that is whether we have the policy documents and proper planning, as well as the systems that will give the directions for the growth of the technical and vocational education. Fostering a demand-driven approach, whether we have systems to assess the demand for labor, and then labor market informations, other vocational education training plans, how we plan it and then deliver the training. Then strengthening critical coordination, that is within TVET institutions as well as with various other stakeholder institutions. The various government bodies have to get together. The money need to come from the governments, the private sectors, all that. So how the network of these links have been made for strengthen the critical coordination to get these actions. So that is the strategic framework. And then the establishment of systems, that is ensuring efficiency and equity in funding, whether we have the right funding channels for public and private sectors, assuring relevant and reliable standards, that is competency standards, curricula, the standards of assessments and all that, the activities associated with the qualifications framework. And then diversifying pathways for skills acquisition. The many players, the public, private, the various modes and all that. So how well we have to achieve those competencies, how well we have the various diversified paths for those who are coming from the school, those who are working, what is the systems that we have. Then the service delivery, the promoting diversity and excellence in training provision. That means how do we engage various players for training provision, public, private, all that, and these mechanisms that we have for excellence in training. Then fostering relevance in public training programs. Many countries, this is because the public systems are slow to respond to the market demands and the industry demands. So we need to get the public training systems, being regularly updated for relevance of the training to the industry. However, and then enhancing accountability for results. So these are the sectors looked at in this analytical tool. There is a rubrics, series of rubrics for each item of these, and we can mark it either 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 is the very basics. 1 is basic. The 2 is emerging. 3 is established, and 4 is excellent. So depending on the evidences that we have, we can get the award the marks, and then an independent evaluation will evaluate the marks, and final scores are given. So with this, we can identify what are our strengths in our system, and what are the weaknesses in our system, and then we will be able to address those weaknesses to go forward. So this is a very good analytical tool available in the World Bank website. I think this is something that each country can exercise. Looking at the future challenges, addressing macro level economic and social issues, this is very important because overall development of TVET system in any country requires addressing of these macroeconomic issues. Bringing TVET into mainstream education and pathways for schools to TVET transition, because the focus of general education, especially the secondary education towards higher education only, that need to change in many countries. Sri Lanka is also looking at how this can be changed, and to provide pathways and proper transition from school to TVET, to have a better informed students coming into the TVET system. The improved operational efficiency, the training program rationalization, starting new vocational training courses, because the operational efficiency of training programs and training institutions is a very important aspect. Because we see when you have large public systems, sometimes the operational efficiency goes little lower. We have the unions, the various demands, and so these are actual realities that we have. But at the same time, we must know that we have to improve the operational efficiencies of these institutions. The private sector, of course, they have to be efficient, otherwise they go out of business. The training for modern technologies, because now we are in the fourth industrial revolution, the technologies are changing, the more electronics, IT, all integrated. So the needs of the industry and the needs of technologies must be met by the current and future the vocational training courses. Then modular-based flexible learning, because the time that a person can spend for upgrading his knowledge and skills is not very much now, because they must be able to upgrade their knowledge, update it in a flexible learning methods, by using flexible learning methods while working. So these demands are coming in the sectors. So our training institutions must be able to offer these in a modular based, in a flexible learning method, so that everybody can access the training. So these are the areas that I wanted to come and deliver, talk to you today. So I hope this gave an overview of the activities in the TVET sector, especially vocational training towards employment. Set the scene for the whole day webinar series by giving the general introduction to the subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. PSD, for sharing these wonderful insights about the vocational training towards employment opportunities. So we will now be opening the forum for any questions. We have about a time period of 10 minutes for questions. How we will be asking questions is we will still have our microphones on mute, but you can use the chat box to type any questions that we have, and we will be directing those towards Dr. PSD. For now, we have two questions, Doctor. Is there any national quality framework which present all education systems and the status of vocational research as well as TVET in the agricultural sector?
Right. Now, as I said in the presentation, there are two qualification frameworks in Sri Lanka. We have the National Vocational Qualifications Framework, which was established in 2004. Then Sri Lanka Qualifications Framework, which was established in 2009. Sri Lanka Qualifications Framework is mainly looking at the general education and the university education at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. The Vocational Qualifications Framework, which came earlier, looking at the vocational qualifications at certificate, diploma, and degree levels. Now, the learning achievements in these two frameworks, qualification frameworks, there is matching. So because of that, when you go to the Sri Lanka qualifications framework, there is a mapping sheet provided, which NVQ qualification is equivalent to which qualification in Sri Lanka qualifications framework. Equivalent, because the two qualifications will not be equal, because this is a vocational qualification with more practical skills and all that. And then in the SLQ, Sri Lanka qualification framework, it's more of an academic qualification in the diploma institutions or in the universities, which is academic qualification. So the final outcomes, the attributes are different, but the levels are made equivalent, because the learning efforts, the all that, the achievements have been compared and then made those aspects equivalent. So we have two systems. Yes. Can I
Okay,
have the
great.
question? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and yes, I think we have
Agriculture
one more
sector, yes.
question.
Yeah.
Yes.
And status of vocational research. The Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission has a research cell and provide funding for vocational research. And so the researchers are from the training providing organizations as well as from the private sector. And then generally there is a research symposium conducted every year. And this year also the research papers have been submitted, and I was also in one of these review panels, and we have reviewed, but unfortunately we are not in a position to conduct the research seminar. But the research have been done and graded. Agriculture sector, vocational research, generally the agriculture, not at the vocational levels, agriculture sector, a lot of research in the university levels, at undergraduate as well as postgraduate levels, but very little, I don't say no, but little research in the agriculture sector in the TVET. Johan, NQF is not depending with the field that you select. NQF is not depending, framework is not depending with the field.
Can we have some clarity, Johan, on which field you're referring to? Until then, so I think we can go to the other question that we had.
Yeah. Right. Why mainstream students do not come vocational education? Now this is what we have. That's what I said. The general education is at present, when you look at it in many countries, including Sri Lanka, is geared towards higher education. And we, from the parents' point of view, from the school's point of view, the teacher's point of view, the promotion is to do better in their examinations, GCE O level, GCE advanced level, that's the university entrance, and enter the university. The performance of schools are also measured by the number of students going into the universities. So this is the sort of culture. And when you look at the subjects, like there is a subject called practical and technical skills from grade 6 to grade 9 in Sri Lankan schools. And this is a very good subject, giving the practical know-how, the projects, because it starts within the grade 6, it starts with teacher generated activities and slowly moving into projects, and the students take the various innovative practical aspects. So this is not exam oriented subject, but it is on continuous assessment. And the sort of importance given to subjects like this is low in our countries. So this creates a situation in the mind of the student that the practical skills are secondary, importance, and the primarily they should, do mathematics, all that, and academic work, and then pass the examinations. So that is the trend. So this is the main reason why we cannot get the students to TVET as their first choice. the many students who come to TVET are coming as their second choice because when they cannot get into higher education or go into any other sector, then they come. So this happens. But the numbers that we get in the TVET is encouraging, because when you look at the numbers that the public sector institutions have taken over the last several years now even it's more than 100,000. That is from an age cohort of say 350,000. We have about say at least 120,000 coming into public sector training organizations. Another 50 to 60,000 going to the private sector TVET institutions. So with that, it is a sizable number coming into the TVET system. But we want to make it better, and there are steps in the general education now. There is a education task force sitting, and one of the main topics taken by this education task force is how can we provide this transition from general education to TVET.
All right. Thank you, Dr. PhD. I think we are running short of time and we might have to conclude the session. So I would like to thank Dr. PhD for all his valuable time and all the distinguished participants we had for the very first session. So we are starting our next session in another 90 minutes time. That's sharp at 11 o'clock. You can join the session in a few minutes if you're already registered. And if you have still not registered, yes, you can still register. And hear from Ms. Louis Chauwer, representing British Council of Sri Lanka, to learn more about the soft skills and aesthetic skills for the youth development. Thank you, and stay connected, stay safe, and it's World Youth Skills Day 2020. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Mama making මුළු ස්පෙක්ට්‍රම් එක